Bert, 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 Bert! Get him, yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It is the 29th of March. I'm going to squeak one more episode in here. A little late, but, you know, who cares? I'm feeling better. I don't know if I sound any better, but I think the bronchitis and the coughing jags have simmered down enough to where I am looking forward to this week's Zoom room. And if you are completely new to the show and you're like, a what? If you go to Patreon, Patreon/Hunting Dog Podcast, you can become a patron of the show and come on to Zoom rooms. We talk, we smoke cigars, we smoke pipes, we smoke cigarettes. Some people smoke marijuana. It's crazy, but that's legal these days. And we all have a drink, and we all shoot the shit, and we talk about everything from gear to dogs to guns, and we just have a fun time. And I'd love to see more of you come on there. What I'd really love to see you do is go to pikegear.com, my title sponsor, and look at their new Dakota pants. Historically, the North Cut was my favorite pair of pants, and now with the Dakotas, I feel like when I put on the Dakota pants, I'm kind of cheating on the North Cut. Can a man fall in love with two pair of pants? I did. Anyway, I fell in love with my new shotgun, too, my new Weatherby Orion. I did manage to shoot it. It was only a box of shells. It was nice enough one day to throw some targets out at the neighbor's house. And basically, he wanted to try it. And I told him, guess what? Weatherby's the only gun company that ever sponsored me with a promo code to save some money on your gun. You can use the promo code HDP and save a few bucks on the Inertia, over under Orion, the Element, the SA-08, any of their shotguns. And if you're not ready for that, you should be thinking about training your dog this spring before the nesting season in Michigan. And I know in most of the states, you have the same thing. Use your Onyx map to find new spots to train your dogs, especially with a new dog. You want to find new spots. It's not hunting season. Don't worry about just get your dog searching in new areas. This develops the dog's talents. See, Onyx can help you in every aspect. And you can get 20% off with the promo code HDP20. Wow, I'm on a roll. I tried to do this last night, and it was 51 takes. Just couldn't get through it. It's Tuesday morning, and I'm ready to just roll through this. And once you get that Weatherby shotgun, you want to load it up with what? Okay, come on. You know the next one. Boss Shot Shells. It is the only ammunition company on the planet, basically in the Milky Way system, that has copper-plated bismuth. You show the birds who's boss. Don't wait to get your Boss Shot Shells till this coming season. Get your order in now. And I got some of their turkey loads. I am not a turkey hunter. I'm a turkey opportunist. And I just found a flock of them last Friday taking tagus out in the grouse woods. And I got a feeling I'm going to, next time I go run old Taggy over there, I'm going to see if this was just a one-off or did I find the honey hole of turkeys, because Tagus found the honey hole of turkeys. I don't have a lot of game meat, but I have a lot in the freezer, and I do all of our stuff with Walton's because they got everything you need but the meat, and I know you probably hunt more than I do, and you got the meat in the freezer. Go to Walton's, check out all their kitchen supplies, all their spices. Turn your kitchen into have yourself be just like that guy that's known for making great sausage, that girl that's known for smoking a perfect loin, a perfect shoulder. Actually, I say that because my wife does all the grilling, all the cooking, my wife does all the cooking. I do all the dishes, though. I will give you that. But just bear in mind, if you go to Walton's, you get their catalog, you're going to spend some money, and you won't be sorry. No more than you're sorry that you feed Purina to your dogs, right? I mean, we know that 9 out of 10 champions, I don't care if it's agility, hunting, night hunting for raccoons, I don't care what it is, 9 out of 10 professionals, people really in the dog world, in the know, they feed Purina. That's what I've fed my whole life, all my dogs. That's all they've ever eaten. They don't know anything else, and that's good. They also know the security and safety of a Gunner kennel. Wow, segue after segue. And the Gunner Kennel Food Crate is what I put my Purina Pro Plan in. It keeps it fresh as a daisy. And I noticed the difference when I used to use just a bin for my dog food. You know, it gets a little dry. You leave the bin. It doesn't lock. It doesn't have a seal on it. When I put it in the Gunner Kennel Food Crate and I open up that latch that's basically bear-proof, because bears don't have thumbs and they'd have a hard time getting a locking pin out of it, it smells like I just opened up a bag. So why, hey, if you're going to, like a dog's got to eat the same food every day, keep it fresh. Keep it dry. Keep it Gunner. Wow. And while you're out training this year and if you're brand new and you're like, and I get the emails all the time, Ron, what do you use? I use Garmin products. They're the best in canine training and navigation. Hands down. Show me an article. Show me a review of anything, anywhere that another company has better equipment for training and navigation with your dogs. I mean, look, they trust it in the spaceships, right? I mean, I think Garmin was originally in the Apollo program. I mean, come on. What, boats, you put a Garmin in your, Garmin's got ice fishing. I mean, come on. They're like Onyx. They make everything in the outdoors easier. Canine Athlete makes it easy to keep your dog just a little bit, give them a little bit of an edge with New Dog, Hydrate and Recover, and Canine Pro. I put Canine Pro in, and I've been putting it in Zara's food, and I will say now I have not seen her itching. Because I saw some YouTube thing like, is your dog itching, scratching, licking, acting weird? It could be its gut biome. I'm like, you know what? Canine Pro. I started putting it in. It's a little teeny scoop. It's very little. And it lasts a month. And I have absolutely noticed Zara not scratching. And she was starting to do that thing where they licked their ankles, I think she was bored. But it could also be in their gut. So I can tell you right now, after about 2.5 weeks of it, I'm seeing a difference with Zara. So there, if you got one of them dogs like Zara. Yeah. And if you're looking for any of this stuff, it's not all going to be at W Hunting Supply, but W Hunting Supply is where we go to get our dog gear. All right? It's like dealing with family. It's like if your family owned a Cabela's and you just got to go in there and shop, but you knew all the people. That's what it's like when you go to W Hunting Supply and dealing with the crew there. They treat you like family. They do. Decked drawer system. I haven't installed it. I've got all the parts out. It's just too damn cold to stand in my garage. But I'll be putting in the new gun rack that fits in the drawer of my deck drawer system. Excuse me. Well, so I told you I was feeling better, but I'm not 100%. And I was just out in Pennsylvania, and my buddy Garrett said, how do you like that deck drawer system? I dropped the tailgate, and I was dropping something off out there, and I said, like it. It's not a matter of liking it. It's a matter of, like, why didn't they come up with this thing 30 years ago when I was, in construction heavy? You can do anything with it. For me, it's the ultimate junk drawer. But my junk drawer is all dog training stuff. But it's in there. I know it's in one of those two drawers. And putting stuff on top of it, you could put 2,000 pounds on top of it, and the drawers still slide in and out like I don't know, what's a good furniture name? You know what I'm saying? It's quality. I live on a sandy, bumpy, crappy road, and I'm on sandy, bumpy, crappy roads all hunting season. Not one screw has loosened up on this thing. It is just as tight as the day I installed it 2 years ago in my truck. Yeah. And if you're a little bored and you're like, well, I'm not going to run my dog. I'm not going to go look for new hunting spots. I'm just going to wait till spring or summer to play with the dog. get your subscription for Shooting Sportsman magazine. It's about birds, dogs, guns, people, and places. It's my favorite magazine. And if you look in the back page, there's a picture of me back there. Yeah, it just happens to be a picture of me and old Bravo. Yeah, it was a picture we took in Wyoming many years ago. And check that out. And if you haven't checked out the Upland Institute for some odd reason, or your dogs are completely trained and you don't need to, I understand that. If you are hunting with a finished gun dog who listens, who comes when he's called, who, can sit for a picture on the tailgate without looking like he's depressed, maybe you don't need the Upland Institute. But I know most of you want to be a better trainer. And we are there for that. We have the trained retrieve, perfect time of year to work on trained retrieve. We have the advanced bird work if you're ready for that. And if you're new to this, or even if you've got a year-old dog that you're like, oh, you know what? I didn't do anything with them. You can start the Upland Institute Foundation Fundamentals course anytime. Anytime. It's like hitting Control Alt Delete or Escape on your keyboard. You just go back in time with the dog, start him out, whether he's a puppy, a 1-year-old. I know a person who took the dog through this at 2 years of age and got better results by just putting the foundation under your dog. Yeah. How's that? Well, that wasn't that hard. That was only 11 minutes. That wasn't bad. I'm going to tell you about this podcast. I wasn't actually going to release this podcast till next month, but I had an audio problem with one I had on file. This recording, which everybody knows my recording quality is, minimal. But this one, it sounded like somebody had a metrodome, like tick, 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 tick. I don't know what that was. I couldn't put that one up. I'm going to send it to a guy and see if he can clean it up. But anyway, I stopped over at Max Lenard's in Howell, Michigan yesterday on my way back from Pennsylvania. I've been looking forward to doing this podcast. We do a pretty deep dive into the Deutsch Drahtharr. Right. Not the German wirehair, the Deutsch Drahtharr. And Max and his wife are members of the Midwest chapter or the Great Lakes chapter. They have their annual meeting coming up at Shanty Creek, and I was supposed to go up there, and I won't be able to make it because I'll be in Alaska with some people up at a fish shack known as the Fish Shack, looking for bear this year. But otherwise, I was going to be up there and meet everybody up there. But you are all welcome to come up to this. If you've ever been DD curious, you want to make your way up to Shanty Creek, go to the website, go to VDD-GNA, look up annual meeting. I'm not going to give you the address. It's at Shanty Creek. We talk about it at the end of the episode. But this is a two-parter, and I'll plug it in at the end. But, hey, if you're DD curious or if you're DD anything, you're going to get some information out of it. And I'll tell you what, after going back out, taking a couple pictures of Max's dogs, I'm telling you what, he's got DDs that look just like my friend Ken Whitney's and Dick DeCam's did. They're, what they refer to as like a poodle pointer mother line. Oh, he's got a couple of dogs. In fact, he told me, if you want to get back into, well, I'm going to just say it. If you want another German wirehair, why not get the original one? He's willing to. I could end up with 4 different breeds of dog here in the next year. I got a problem. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode. I'll put the next one out Sunday on time so you can hear the second part of it. And, this is it. A lot of people were waiting for this because I get a lot of emails about it. What's the difference? Well, there are differences, and there are rules. And I love rules. I also love to break rules. Love you guys. Love you girls. Have a great week. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I am at Max Leonard's house in, what town are we in?
Technically Howell, Michigan.
Howell, Michigan. And I came here to do a deep dive into the Deutsch Drahtharr. The club, the testing, Max's background with it, his wife's background with it. But I got to tell you, I just heard the best story
of an attempted carjacking with this guy, and I should have hit the recording button. I'll try to tell you guys on a Zoom room the best parts of the story. Max, I don't know if I can focus on the hunting podcast right now because it makes me just want to just go for it. Anyway, Max, give everybody a little intro and you and your wife and your background with the Deutsch Drahtharr, the VDD.
Sure. My name is Max Lenhard from Howell, Michigan. My wife is Kathleen Gannon. She's a doctor of veterinary medicine. We've been involved with Deutsch Drahtharrs, I guess, probably about 15 or 17 years at this point. Kind of fell into them as a hunting dog. We didn't really know much about them. The first one we got, in retrospect, probably was not the most sensational representation of the breed, but we got involved and fell in love with it and thought they were the greatest hunting dogs ever. So
Did you read about it first? Because that's usually when somebody gets a breed that isn't a German Shorthair or isn't a Brittany, they read an article in Gun Dog, or they read did you read something?
Pretty much you hit it on the head.
Okay.
Growing up, I gave Ron a little background. My dad encouraged me to hunt, but he wasn't a hunter per se. My uncle and cousin really got me into it, and they had short hairs, beagles, labs.
All the normal stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so I duck hunted a little bit. I mostly pheasant hunted.
Right.
Kicked around after some grouse and rabbits. And my wife and I lived in the country. She had a big nasty Rottweiler. I worked afternoons. And so when it was time to kind of replace the dog, she had started hunting at that point, and
your wife did.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep. She didn't grow up hunting. And so we wanted to get something that wasn't a guard dog per se, but was at least maybe looked apart and would bark and discourage people if,
You weren't going to get a lap dog.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
And so kind of like Ron had said, growing up reading Field and Stream and outdoor life, they always, it seems like every couple of years, they break it down like, oh, these are the dogs that you can do. And they, they'll throw
do it all dog.
Yep. And they'll throw in the outliers like a Boykin or something crazy like that. And I didn't know the difference between a Griff, or Griffon, a wire hair,
or a drop.
Or a drop. So
you just...
Yep.
I want one.
Yep, exactly. It kind of fit the needs of everything we did. I tried using my lab once to blood track a deer unsuccessfully. So I was like, these dogs do it all.
Was that a little part of it, though, when you heard about the blood tracking?
Everything, yeah. It was
everything.
Yeah, yep. And again,
the water work.
Yep, exactly. So Michigan Woods and Waters, like a big newspaper, like a magazine.
It's our monthly rag. It's at all the gas stations.
Exactly, and it's big and it's newspaper. It's not glossy. It's not fancy.
Yeah, it's just a rag.
Yep, it's just a rag mag, and at the end of it, they have classifieds, and sure enough, for sale, a Deutsch Drahtharr, and we called the people and went out and came home with one.
So, we might have to make this 2 parts, but because I know I'm going to go down so many rabbit holes. I mean, you got a dog the way like so many people get a dog. Nowadays, it's all kind of internet-based searches.
Everything,
with way more, websites and stuff. So it was basically the equivalent of a newspaper ad.
1,000%.
Outdoor magazine.
No different than like your old Sunday classifieds.
And then kind of splitting that. Going from you and your wife have bred a few times.
Correct.
And comparing yourself to the guy that you bought that from through an ad. Like, you and your wife would not put an ad in Woods and Waters now for Drahtharrs.
No, I wouldn't say so.
But what was his... That's a few years back. What was his vetting process for you? Or was there one?
No. and truly... It was the last dog, and she was, I think, 3 or 4 months old at that point.
So he hadn't sold it.
Correct. So yeah. There was. I think he was,
They have money.
Yeah.
I have a dog for sale.
Exactly.
Oh, and now, by the way, you own a Drahtharr.
Yeah. For the most part.
And you don't have a good German accent.
No, not at all. I can speak a little bit. I was forced into it in school. But I will say, in retrospect, the 2 things that he really did, though, is he gave us a premise. He talked about the dogs. Yeah. And then he gave, and they're folks on the East Coast, they've been around forever. They've been through the alphabet, and we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah.
A bunch of times. But they have the Drahtharr Puppy Manual, which I'm sure is in... it's 4th edition.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I've heard of it referenced.
Yeah. So we got that with the dog, and that was really kind of...
that would be kind of like NAVDA's Green Book. Like, here's what you do.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you have. Here's some guidelines.
Yeah.
But just reading guidelines is...
And I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. My wife always makes fun of me, but I always say that the DD or the Drahtharr is like a cult, right? Like, it's definitely a cult.
Certainly a club.
For sure.
It's a club. Yeah.
And that puppy manual really kind of gives you the decoder ring to read the cult manual.
Ring.
Yeah, it talks about the Onentafel, and which is the paper, and how to read it, and what different hash marks mean, what the parents have done, and the years of birth, and stud dog registry numbers, and it really allows you to use Ron's term, go down a rabbit hole with the dogs.
Yeah, which you don't get that with other things either, though.
No.
I mean, people have heard me say this this is my 8th year doing this. I said, if there was one dog, and I'm just going to use the American word for it, if I had one dog and only one dog, it would be a German Wire.
Okay.
Because of my love of the ones I owned, you know. And back when I first got my first one, it was a half DD registered from Canada.
Okay.
But back in the day, NAVDA and the VDD-GNA didn't have any separation really.
Okay.
You know, because there wasn't that many of either around.
Right.
And to this day, and I give all the credit in the world to that club who, you know, I was born in the 50s. We had a lot of rules, like didn't talk when you weren't spoke to. You know, if a neighbor was mad at you, you could get corrected by the neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If a cop pulled you over, and you can appreciate it because you are a law enforcement person, you said yes sir, no sir. Like, I like rules.
Yeah.
And when I found out about the VDD-GNA is there's rules.
For sure.
Not prohibitively terrible rules, just let's have rules.
And it's all those are in place too for the betterment of the dog, right?
Right.
To protect that integrity.
It's not for the people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, we think we have this, or we know we have this, and to keep that kind of a dog on this planet, we're not going to deviate from these rules.
Correct.
No matter how bad we might want to here.
Right.
So what was your first dealing with the and I should say that for the people who don't know it, I might screw it up, Deutsch Drahtharr.
Correct.
Right?
Deutsch Drahtharr. Again, it goes into
Group North America,
GNA, correct.
GNA.
And so obviously it's founded in
the
Germany.
parent club is in Germany.
Correct.
Yep.
And there's separate groups within Germany, which denotes a group, and that group's going to have their own executive board, breed warden, directors.
Okay. Almost like a chapter of sorts?
Well, interestingly, Group North America is a group, and
Okay.
then we have our subsect of chapters under that group.
Okay,
So no matter
I
what,
see.
we're Group North America, but here Michigan, Ohio, Indiana is Great
That would be
Great Lakes chapter.
Great Lakes
correct.
chapter.
Yep, and then you have, you know, the Atlantic, the big rivers, and they're I think it's 6 or 7 throughout.
Region.
Oh God, I
Almost.
should know this. I'm on a podcast. I should have these answers.
Exactly. And you work with the club.
Correct.
Right.
My wife happens to be, I'd say I'm indentured, or the first lady of the club. That my wife's the chairman of the Great Lakes chapter.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So when did you get first, like, okay, you got the first dog, you got the puppy manual, but you haven't done any event yet. You didn't do any testing, right?
Correct. The first dog I got was, again, I was
It's just your dog.
looking for a hunting dog.
I bought a bird dog. Just happens to be this one with a lot of history.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So we ended up getting actually 2 of them a couple years apart, and that's as we did a little bit of a deeper dive, and then back to my, you know, some of the things I've talked about.
Yeah.
We had no idea. So to classify, there's 3 colors that are acceptable that are bred.
Yep.
There's Schwarzschimmel, which is black roan, brown Schimmel, that is brown roan, and then brown, solid brown with a variation of a breast fleck or a breastplate, and
Or
then
some white on
the white on their paws, right?
Paws, yeah.
So my wife, we've bridged the gap from rag mags to the internet, which becomes the downfall. My wife finds a brown one. She's like, oh, it's the coolest dog ever. So we end up, you know, dogs are spaced out. We're hunting more. We're
Right.
getting more involved in this. And so we end up with this brown female that becomes kind of a superstar. And that was my first exposure to the testing and being a member.
So you tested that one.
Correct. Yeah.
So I do want to go over just again, a lot of this is, I was famous or infamously famous for getting on Steve Rinnella's podcast and talking about the club because he mentioned something that I told him 30 years ago, and the DD people wrote into Meat Eater
Okay.
in mass. That's wrong. But Steve got it all wrong from what I told him. But I want to kind of describe for people who don't know. the puppy test, the levels of test.
Okay, so there's 3 tests. One is the VJP, and I'm not even going to attempt it. It's about as long as this table. It's like
It's got
Verbrand
18 letters.
Human proofing.
Right.
It's very, very long, and I'm sure butchered the pronunciation of it.
But it kind of means first test.
Yep, it's the Jungen is the young dog. They have to be born within a certain time frame for that calendar year. October 1 is the cutoff date.
Right.
So you generally, if you're really looking into it and you want to go eyeballs deep into it, it's a little bit of a disadvantage to get that July, August, September puppy, because they're late. They're going to be obligated to test that coming spring.
So they're going to be obligated under a year of age.
Correct. Yeah. Whereas the October 1 gives you that window.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it's a really basic kind of, similar to a natural ability. They don't have a ton of expectation on what is going to.
You really want to see what the parents produced.
Correct. And the things measured in that is they take them out for a field search. They want to see how they would search for an upland bird.
Right.
How they go to cover, the gait that they do, hunting to objective. Do they really want to see what that dog does without a lot of restriction or guidance or bolstering? They look at the gait that they cover it at, how the range they go at. Again, do they go linear? Are they really doing a nice windshield pattern?
Right. Or they stay behind you too much?
Correct. Yeah,
right.
all that stuff.
Big thing.
Are they checking in? Are they independent hunting? Are they they really hunting with you or for themselves? And then generally in that same aspect, they do gun sensitivity. Two shotgun. They have to be 12 gauge blanks. Yep. Make sure there's no gun sensitivity.
And that's while they're out running in the field?
Correct, yeah. Yep. Make sure there's no adverse reaction. And then they go into, they point. They want to see a couple points. Make sure, and it doesn't have to be this movie star or, hunting video point where they're rock solid and don't move. And
they got to show that they inherited some point from their parents.
Correct, yep, exactly.
Pause long enough to say,
that's a point.
He'll do.
Yep, that's a point.
Right.
Yep. And then from there, something Ron and I talked about off the microphone is like.
You mean the jujitsu? The first hour of jujitsu conversation?
That or the you're like joking around the cult, like on a weekend you're standing up to your chest in briars with a stick trying to produce make rabbits run for
so
they trap
that
rabbits.
Part, because I know most people, so in comparative to a lot of my listeners, they're certainly NAVDA listeners.
Sure.
So in our, we take a pheasant, we try to find an ideal field, and we release this pheasant with wing feathers pulled, so it produces some ground scent as it runs away from us. And in the VDD test, in the VJP test,
correct,
you're looking for a wild rabbit.
Correct. Yep, we use
come hell or high water.
Hell or high water, and some of them are very, very few and far between. And there's been some just unbelievably long, hard days for that.
But they insist it's got to be that.
It does, and even out west they do jackrabbits. So it has to be a hare. It has to be some, obviously
rabbit hare.
Yep, exactly. Or hare, HARE. It could be because they use European hares over there, and that's a huge thing. So
they have a lot of them over there.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And so that the dog has to show its ability to track for or hare type.
Concentrate on.
Correct.
And the one time I walked this test, and it was many, many years ago, I was doing the same thing where we're in kind of like a semi-farmer's junk. You know how farmers, especially in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Farmers in Michigan are pigsties.
Oh, yeah. Old tractors.
You go through Ohio, there's no garbage around the barn. They mow the grass right up to the old, even if the barn ain't used.
Yeah.
In Michigan, they'll throw out the washing machine.
Yeah.
And you're out there with the dogs, and the handlers are walking with their dogs on Jaeger leads.
Yeah.
The judges are there, and you're kicking washing machines.
Yeah.
If that happens to be
whatever's there.
Yeah. And if a rabbit squirts out, you're like,
rabbit. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like a free for all.
It is.
It
is. And the judges have to see the rabbit.
The judges have to see the rabbit.
So you can do that and get shredded in the thorn bush and put a beautiful track down a mowed lane. But if a judge doesn't see where the rabbit goes, you can't use it.
I've always thought that was a real barrier to entry. So I'll break off to a little training because we're kind of lucky in the other versatile side of the world of just being able to use a pheasant. We can go buy a pheasant, big deal. We can use a duck for practice, right? I mean, ducks just waddle and scent all over the place. When you're getting a young dog ready, are you doing the same thing? You're just taking them on a rabbit walk?
Pretty much.
Because it's almost counterproductive. Bird dog people are like, oh, I don't want my dog around rabbits.
Well,
Right.
I mean, we were talking about like old school hunting and stuff like that. I remember a guy I hunted with when I had my first bird dog came back with a rabbit, and you would have thought that, he went and attacked the neighbor lady because it was, you can't do it as a bird dog. But no, they kind of, you said there's, and again, the cult, like all the guys have the rabbit trapping experts that they'll get cottontails, and then that way they've got a fresh hot spot that they can take their dog from.
Right.
Kind of what I do, and some people do, is like just as a young puppy, you kind of introduce the tracking command with anything, like cheese, hot dogs, whatever, just so that way
you put a separate collar on the dog.
I don't.
Some people do.
Yeah,
right?
some people do for sure.
Yeah.
Just that way, when you point to the ground and give them the command, whether it be track or cupcake, they know that's kind of their job at that point. And then hopefully, I try and transition it. And then as they get a little bit older, you walk at night or go to a mowed field or parks where rabbits come out.
Try to find one.
That way you go and
You're out there with a headlamp on.
Exactly. Whatever it takes.
That comes in handy being a cop, huh? Like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing a rabbit track.
Catching rabbits. Yeah.
So that's to me a difficult part of the test.
It is tough, but as long as you lean on, people have done there before, they really have a lot of tricks to kind of help you along the way.
And they're not going to go to a place that they think is void of rabbits, obviously.
Correct. Well, in a lot of places now, too, like the testing venues are kind of perennial. Mm-hmm. So they have, they have I don't want to say a sure thing, but they've got it down
Brush
to a
files
system. Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're going to go here.
Yep.
It might not, you can't put 15 minutes on a dog.
Right.
But we know we should be able to get the tracking segment
Correct.
done. So this dog, the judge will, okay, boom, rabbit squirts out. You always see a rabbit for 10, 15, 20 yards, and then boom, he's gone.
Correct.
So he'll ask the handler then, whoever's turn it is,
Correct.
to come up here, and that's where they let their dog down and...
Correct. And there's some rules that, most people will use a slip lead to start their dog, just that way they've got it.
Yep.
And then you have a certain amount of distance that you can go
walk
with that dog.
If it happened to be a trail,
Correct.
You can take a few steps.
Correct. But the dog doesn't go under analysis or judging until it's off the leash. So you have to kind of weigh that. If it's, going using cottontails, they only got 25 feet of what they saw, you don't want to burn that up on lead. You might want to give it. And it's, the more you go to, you can kind of see it in the dogs that have a proclivity or, really like to track, and ones that have spent some time, that's where you really start running your score up, or your dog has an ability to shine, I should say.
Right.
If it really is diligent, it goes from that mowed path into the tall grass, and then next thing you know, it squirts the rabbit down and it produces it, and then it stays after. That's what they're kind of looking for.
Right. Now, if they did catch a track and the rabbit went in a hole, they could get a score, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For sure. But then sometimes that dog kind of turns into a beagle for a while.
For sure. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And they actually, since we're going and really diving into it, they have designations for sight loudness and scent loudness. And
really?
Yeah, SIL and SPL, if you ever see it on the Onentafel.
Wow.
Which is Zick loud and Spoor loud, which means you're sight loud or scent loud. Yep.
So if he saw it running, he starts barking.
Correct.
Or there's no way he sees it, but his nose is right behind the rabbit. And
Correct.
He's barking.
Correct. If he's giving tongue to it, or
does that give him more score, or it's just noted on there?
It's going to be noted on there. Their papers will actually be marked, and then if they say, the dog's lucky enough to say have 2 or 3 tracks that day, and it designates, it's scent loud on every track, and it's really kind of putting the work in and doing that.
Right.
There's a chance that that's going to go up. It's going to help us score overall, but just doing that per se is not a score multiplier or anything along those lines.
But it's noted.
Correct.
So, and if you were breeding for that, and because people don't read. If you look on Facebook, I'm sure you guys do with the different clubs. You'll see 20 pheasants and about 50 hare out on the lawn in Europe. They're doing a lot of hare
for sure. And that's kind of where it comes in, is that they do more driven hunting, and that's why it has more importance to them over there. That way they can hear the dogs, especially ones that are proven to be scent.
Right, it helps.
Yep,
for
exactly.
Sure. They get a little beagle in them.
Exactly.
So we throw a little beagle in there. Now we throw a little beagle.
We don't know where we put that on the on top.
That's the tricolor. Drahtharr.
The new See how that would definitely not help your popularity.
No, probably wouldn't pass the. What's the breed warden's title?
Breed warden.
Is that it? Breed warden.
Correct.
My friend Ken Whitney was a breed warden, and I thought that was really cool. But I want to get back to the puppy, the young test. So you do a water section.
Nope, that's in the fall.
Okay, the water's in the fall, so it's
Correct.
field and birds, how he hunts in the field,
And then the
ideally point a bird,
correct,
and then the tracking.
which is kind of the lifeblood. If you look at the pins and awards and things that you get in the spring test, it's almost always the rabbit because that's the lifeblood of that test.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's when it's hard. I mean,
It is, and so when you read, as you read the Untitled test score, it's very simple. It's a 1 to 12, right?
Right.
12s are very, very. That's perfection in essence, right?
12's as good as you.
Exactly. And so the use of nose and the tracking are two multipliers in that. So if everything else, your dog gets a 9 in search, a 10 in point, a 10 in cooperation, but it gets an 11 in track and 11 in nose, those are worth 22 each as opposed to the 11. So that's
It's like getting honor rolls.
Yeah,
It's making the
it
honor
helps.
roll.
It helps.
Like I was not even a good student, and then like my sister was an A and the honor roll.
of course, yeah.
But
Difference in puppies, right?
exactly. Yeah, we talked about that when we got here. So that's the spring test.
That's the VJP. Yep, that's
So-
the spring.
And again, I like rules. Now, I'm not saying I would adapt it to them. I would have stuck it out with
Sure.
the club. But the fact that it kind of puts you on the path, like, if I'm going to do this, I got to get ready this spring, or, hopefully getting ready that year. And come fall, they don't give me another fall to wait.
Nope.
It's that next fall. That's,
Correct.
If we're talking solstices, no more than 6 months apart.
Right.
Now, what's your dog have to do with?
So that one, they're looking at a more kind of advanced dog, the one that should be getting ready for that upcoming season. Most of them in the United States, you're not going to see a hair track in it, but they do have them. And so, I don't know, kind of went off the rail, not on, but if you look at an on and toffel or a score sheet, you're going to see OSP, or I'm sorry, hang on, I should have one in front of me. But basically, it's going to denote that there's no hair track. It's going to say O or with.
Okay.
And so, but getting rid of that, you have field search and point again. They do gun sensitivity yet again for the blanks in the field search.
Right.
They're probably going to look for a little bit more manners and a little bit more realistic hunting
Teamwork,
stuff.
almost.
Yeah, and like your dog, what would have gotten you a 10 in your spring puppy test might not again. They might want
Right.
a little bit more.
Like if he didn't get any better in his field search, he might go down a little bit.
And it's hard saying, and I'm speaking maybe a little bit out of turn because I don't judge. I've run my fair share, but I think that's what, at least when I'm bringing my dogs along, I want them to be able to.
6 more months should be.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
More exposure, and just a little bit more mature of a dog. And then what really kind of going back into the awards in the fall test, the HZP, the duck is the king in that one, right?
Okay.
So, and then going back to the rabbits in this case, so again, we'll kind of run them sequentially and they can be run out of order. You have your field search, you have your point, and then what they do is drags, dead game drags, and that's for your retrieving reliability.
And again, that's furred or feathered?
Both. You do
Okay.
you do a furred game drag, which is a little bit longer, and it has to have some turns in it, and the dog has to go off leash and out of sight, get to the game,
Away from its handler,
out of sight, and then come back. Same thing with the duck. And then once you have those, then you move on to water retrieves. So
Right.
you do gun sensitivity in the water, and these are particular how they do them. That's the only one that they're going to see a marked retrieve. They take a freshly killed duck, they throw it in the water in front of the dog's released into the water, and then once it's in the water, they shoot onto the water to make sure it's gun sound in the water.
Wow.
Yeah. And so from there...
A couple shots?
No, just one shot.
One shot?
Yep, into the water. And again, they're looking for a dog that goes about his job and is going to bring the game back.
And not turn around, go
Correct.
find out what the shot was all about either.
Correct. Or
he's going to get that dog.
Yep, exactly. Or sensitivity if it's gonna.
Yeah.
Yep. And then from there, it's a blind retrieve. Retriever guys are always blown out of their, that it's not 250 yards and over 4 obstacles with a poison blind in there. It's
Right.
just it's a real meat and potatoes. It's generally further than you're going to be able to throw something, but it's
Right.
not real long.
But that's set up not with dragging the game there.
Correct.
Somebody's placing or use launcher or
No, generally it's placed. Placed, yeah.
Then they bring you up obviously without the wind at your favor.
Correct.
And they just have you send your dog on a
They're generally, it's going to be in a place conspicuous enough that you and I would probably be able to see it.
Right.
So you have an idea that you're lining your dog.
Right.
And then from there, the last one they do is they search for live duck. They put a crippled duck out, and then they put your dog
That
out.
would be like the duck search.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And those are all retrieves that you have to complete. And
Oh, they have to complete even the live duck?
that changed recently.
Okay.
If the dog produces the duck and it's shot, then it has
to bring it.
Correct. But if they go out and they do a great
Because there's ducks that can outswim dogs.
Correct. Right. And then, you run a 2-day test, for example, there's, a good chance there's a leftover duck and it can, go on. So that one, if it's not shot, they don't have to,
But back in the day,
it
was actually like, no, you will.
Yeah.
You will swim faster than that duck.
A lot of tense moments on that last duck, when people were in the
And you got your whole days
riding on that,
doing
for
good.
sure. Yeah.
I took Zygon, which everybody knows is my favorite wire hair that I ever had, to the Invitational. And we're at that part, it was called a shackled duck.
Okay.
So it's a combination of kind of what you said. It's kind of like a marked retrieve. Dog sees it, but what they did is they taped the duck up. Mm-hmm. Duck will go usually belly up or back up again, and he starts paddling away. So then you send the dog, and you're expecting the dog. He's going to where he saw it, but he's following it with his nose on
Track
the water,
on the water, yeah.
which is an incredible thing to watch a dog.
It is.
How does it? It's crazy.
It is.
It's one thing to have it in the wind, but to smell it in the water while they go after him. Well, he went out there, and I thought, oh, he's doing a good job, But the downside of that test was, if the duck was launched, it was launched out of a launcher, and if it landed on his back and the duck decided to stand its back or was taped up differently,
there it sat.
it was just sat.
Yeah.
And the dog would go out, get the duck, dog got a passing score. And for Zygon, the duck started swimming away.
Okay.
And I saw him go into the cattails, and he disappeared. And this whole thing should only take a few minutes, right?
Sure.
And 2-3 minutes later, I see the duck open in the clearing again. There goes the duck. It looked like a shooting gallery duck. There goes the duck. 2-3 minutes. Talk about some good tracking.
Yeah.
2-3 minutes later, there goes Zygon right across the water. I'm like, damn, they should give it to me for this.
Yeah.
And they let that thing go almost 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He could not swim as fast as a duck. I'm telling you, he should have passed that test. He tracked that thing on the water for 20 minutes straight.
Could they shoot the duck back then or no?
No, that was not part of the play.
So they
ended up getting rid of that part of the test too. They changed it.
So in the DD system, say that dog goes out there and does it and produces it, that way they'll shoot the duck, and that way your dog has something to work for.
Well, in the utility test, yes.
Okay.
We if possible, safely.
Same thing. Possible and
possible
safely.
to do it, we'll do it. In the invitational test, it wasn't set up like that.
Okay.
And eventually enough people complained about it, and they said, we got to do something else. Because you can't make every duck swim or not swim.
Right. And with the duck being the king, kind of like the rabbit and the VJP that we were talking about. So that dog, the same thing, a dog goes out and it goes through some lily pads and some cover, and the dog just doesn't really want to advance its search.
Right.
It kind of does this thing there that's going to obviously be indicative of its desire to work and its ability. Just like the rabbit, if it just peters out at the first turn, it's not going to be as good as if that, whether it be the rabbit goes through 4 different turns and 2 different types of cover. Same thing, the duck goes in lily pads, through cattails, dives, comes up, and the dog is just all over it. That's going to,
You're not worried about a short point in the field, but you want a strong duck chase.
Exactly. So that's a 3 multiplier, where the rabbit's 2 in the spring, a duck multiplier is 3.
Of your score.
Yeah.
We won't get into all the nuances of points. It's all just an accumulation of points.
Exactly.
3 times that, and multiplier 3 times 12 is 36 points. So with that, that's a requirement not to buy the dog. It would be recommended by your breeder. They would want you to do this.
Correct.
But if you want to stay in the game and say, you know what, I might want to do this. Mm-hmm. I might want to stay in this club. I might want to breed a dog someday. To be even considered that level in the club or of the Drahtharr world, the dog has to pass those tests, right? It can't fail the tests.
Correct. It has to be through those, and the things they're looking for kind of to go delve into why they do it. In the German system, they want to make sure they're going to track furred game, the hare, right?
Got to be able to recover game.
Yep. And then the duck, the same thing, and why they want to make sure they're not gun sensitive either on land or in the water.
Right.
And then lastly, the last component of that, that's the performance-wise, that's the minimum that you need to be at, is through VJP and through HCP with passing scores or acceptable scores in the hare, track, and the duck.
Right.
And then they have a breed show, which they analyze the dog's coat and conformation.
Measure them.
Measure size,
Right.
give their, grade their hair, basically.
Yeah, it's dense, harsh.
Yep,
medium
exactly.
dense.
How they're put together,
Right.
And then bite, and then any other breed disqualifying things, whether it be bad eyes or butt bites.
Do you
or
see much of
scissor
that with the eyes? I wouldn't imagine.
No, it's one of the other things I said, they don't read the script, genetics. So they're very, very proactive on what they do, whether it be Von Willebrands, all the dogs have to be have their hips done.
Right.
So they very, very, very much back to your rules and
Right.
the German rules and the
Right.
engineering systems and X, Y, and Z. They're
Right.
very diligent. And so no, it's not like you're always going to get an outlier, a mutation, or something that comes along, but for the most part, I've always said, and I think that's one of the things.
Pretty good assembly line of dogs.
Exactly. And I think that's what draws it, and this is by no means scientific. There is a fair number of veterinarians in there in the club, and I do think a lot of it comes from, there's no such thing as a sure thing, right? You
No.
can't guarantee anything, But I will say that, you have two parents that they're proven that they're going to be gun sound and they're going to go and
Right.
they do the minimum standards, and then it's pretty close to you're going to have a healthy dog that should, without much interference,
Right.
go out and hunt.
There's always an exception. but
Always,
that's-
yeah.
I mean, there's an exception with
Everything.
a car coming off a good assembly line, like your Denali.
Exactly.
With the, what'd you call it? A widget?
It had a gremlin in the
You had a
electric.
gremlin in the electronic
Yeah.
part. And that's something that for people who don't know, really existed all over Europe forever and a day.
Yeah.
It was whether you were a Munsterlander breeder or a Weimaraner breeder or a Griffin. I mean, that's how they do things.
Correct. And they all of them, whether it be they fall under a bigger parent umbrella. And when I said the VJP is as long as this table,
Yeah.
the parent organization is as long as two tables. It's
Right.
JGHV is
Right.
and it's like
Every word is an 18-letter word.
Toots. I mean, and it's monstrous, and that's
Right.
what they all fall under over there.
Right.
And so if you hypothetically had a Weim or a Poodle Point or something
Right.
that's registered under JGHV,
Right.
you could still run it in a DD test.
Right. Because you're saying, yep, we buy into
Yep, exactly.
this system of testing.
Precisely.
Which is kind of like what we do here with NAVDA, except we never have set the bar for the breeder.
Right.
Now, I think most breeders do a good job of setting the bar on themselves.
I do.
But there's no governing body.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something when I first got here, and I don't think we even touched on it because we started going into everything else
Sure.
we started talking about. They don't want nor encourage, let's try that test again, let's try that test again. They want to say, this dog at this age should show us this, it should show us that. It's not in what's happened, I feel, in NAVDA. Well, NAVDA was, started, Bodo Winterheld came from Germany with that test, because
Sure.
you never did our stuff, but I mean, our tests are almost the same test. You have some degrees of difficulty in
Sure.
it. But, and we ask a little bit more out of a puppy, yet we don't ask as much out of, that system is like all the talent in the dog world we have here in this country is because of the bar they set for themselves in Europe. Now, we can dismantle that and lower that bar down.
Sure.
But what I like about it is the VDD said, no, we're not going to, even though we have this club in North America, we're not lowering the bar.
Correct.
In fact, don't even ask us
Right.
to lower the bar.
Right.
What comes after that then? After the spring fall test, let's say your dog passed that. What's the next? If you don't have to go anywhere else, right?
Correct, yep.
That's enough to show you got
Yep.
solid breeding of dogs.
So the next one is called the VGP, and that's
Okay.
the middle initials G versus J, and that's a 2-day, and that's considered like would be your utility or invitational.
Okay.
Again, I should probably have been. I think it's 25 or 26 individual things that they do there,
Right.
and it's really kind of it's extremely. I don't want to say. It's time-consuming training, and I think the people that gravitate towards it are really kind of looking to show what that dog is capable of, right? Because I think you're going to get a dog that really isn't where it should be performance or training or cooperation-wise is going to struggle under that, versus the other ones not, because it's 2 days, there's more evaluation, there's blood tracking, there's forest work, there's, a
lot of obedience.
tons of obedience.
Because your first 2 tests are basically like natural ability and teenager ability.
Yeah,
kinda.
yep. I say about the HCP is kind of like your 75% finished dog.
Right, right. But now you're looking for
your grad student.
a finished dog.
Yep, they're expected to not break at the sound of gunshots.
Right.
Go out and work independently, but yet stay very close to you when necessary.
What about all retrieving? All the retrieves have to be
all the retrieves and then some, because they put in more game. There's non-edible game in that, like fox and you can use a fox or raccoon for a couple of the retrieving things. But
now this is the one that we have to dispel, because the fox in the box.
Fox in the box.
It's not a box, but it's a barrier.
It's a barrier. Yep.
Explain how that. I guess I'll do a quick.
Sure.
A drag in NAVDA, and I'm sure in VDD. The dead carcass is on a leash of sorts.
Yep, just a drag rope of sorts.
And one judge just drags it off to behind a tree line or 100, sometimes 200 yards away. And the dog is then brought up to the starting point, and the dog is sent. Now, it's not a nose challenge because it's a dead animal dragged through the grass.
Right, very much
My
so.
wife's corgi could fight it.
Exactly.
But it's what it does when it gets there.
Right.
It's that desire to find dead game and then bring it back to the owner.
Right.
But so you do that with furred and feather. But what's that one that I got in trouble for? How does the fox in the box or the
fox in the box, because they have to be within a size. They have to be over a minimum size. So it's obviously, it adds a degree of difficulty because of
just
that.
the game.
Correct. Yeah, it's longer.
It's got a long tail. It's a long body.
Correct.
Right.
And again, that kind of shows more, like you said, your corgi or a lot of dogs are gonna have that natural inclination to go out and bring something back. Right. We all see the dog that drops the bird 10 feet from. Like
this is like a little canine.
Right now, and that's one of the explanations I heard, is that's kind of why they do that. It's a familiar species, right? And it's not something that a dog is naturally going to want to go and pick up, and so that obstacle adds a degree of difficulty as far as getting over.
Jumps that obstacle, or
it goes in, and then it picks the game up, and then it comes back out over the barrier. And in the rules, like it can be over like a ditch of like a river or
as long
of
as
sorts.
There's some effort on the dog
Correct.
to enter that area and exit that area with some.
Correct. Yeah.
Some gur.
Some gur. I'm going to use that. I'm going to work that
That's
in.
the jiu-jitsu, man. That's the gur. That's all I had.
Yeah. So, I have it too. I sizes my ally, I guess. But so that's the big one, and I think that's almost more ceremonial when we talk about the awards and things that go, or you get at the end.
Yeah.
Like almost always in the VGP, you'll see like the dog like standing regally with the fox
With
in
the
its
fox.
mouth.
That's it.
And my personal thing is like I think for all the stuff that goes into training and preparation for that test, I don't, and hopefully I don't get in. It seems like a lot of effort and ceremony goes into it. It's quick. You're done in, you're done in literally in a second, right? But it just seems, and I get it. The pageantry of it is a huge part, but. I think more people stress out and have problems in like blood tracking and
that would be to me the blood tracking is that's a super there's no nose work in going to get the fox,
right?
But the blood tracking, now you have different lengths of age for blood tracks, right? Or at that test level, is it overnight?
Again, not going into the nuances of it, but they have you can have a day track, which is aged, obviously it's laid the morning of the test.
Right.
And then they have what's called an overnight test, or an overnight. So they lay it the night before, so it ages longer. And so that adds a degree of difficulty and gives you a higher multiplier.
And that would be like a deer blood track.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so it has to be a certain length, and it has to have a certain amount of turns, and with a wound bed in it. And that's again kind of going to be more of
a wound bed, like a place where a deer would rest.
Yep,
okay.
a mock wound bed. And then there's to even go further down, they have a couple other things that you can do that add degrees of difficulty. One of them is a Bringsel work, or dead game guide.
Yeah.
And then they do a dead game Bayer too.
Right.
Those
it's like Tort for Bell or
Tote for Bell, yeah, exactly.
Bell.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah.
And you know what I read that in? I read that in an old book. I like when I go antiquing sometimes.
Sure.
I'll find an old dog training book. And this one, I think it was from right after the big war. And it was the German short hair in America. But I mean, all these, they were just from,
Sure.
They had ears almost as long as my Broncos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
not as many pointers have gotten in there yet.
Yeah, we didn't slide anything in under the rug.
Yeah.
My kennel's open. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
White dog.
Yep.
That's another one. You can't have any whites.
No,
that's
you can't even have certain patches over a certain size or no.
Right.
Forbidden.
But where was I going with that? With the
Bringsel and Tote.
the Bringsel, and I read that, and I let's hit pause that for a second. That's perfect.